I have to tell you about this preacher who was all over my social media a few days ago because of something he did last weekend. And, every now and then there's like a preacher who gets arrested and everyone's talking about it. And it's like dime a dozen. Why are we talking about this person? And then I saw what this guy did and I'm like, oh, this is disturbing. Okay, let me give you some background here. This is a story involving a pastor named Marvin Winans, and he runs a church in Detroit, Michigan called Perfecting Church, because I guess the thinking is we're in the process of improving ourselves, right? So he basically rebuked a woman for not donating enough to his church, which is bad enough, but the way he did it is kind of stunning. So here's what happened. Last Sunday, it was what his church was calling a day of giving. I don't know why they called it a day of giving because I feel like that's every day if you go to church. Like that's at least every Sunday. But this last Sunday was a day of giving. And what Winans explained during his sermon is that he wanted everyone to sow a seed, as the grifting preachers do, of 1,000 plus 1, which is his preacher way of saying, I want 1,000 plus another 1,000. He wants $2,000 per person. Not only did he want the money, he asked everyone in the congregation to form a single file line in the center of the church, get up in front of the microphone and announce to the world, not just the congregation, but the live stream audience, how much they were giving. And I don't know why they do that. Is that a peer pressure thing? Is that I'm giving this much money? What are the rest of you doing? Right? So I don't love this to begin with. But at some point, a woman and her son were in line. And when it was their turn to give, Pastor Winans let them have it with a response you fully expect to see from Ticketmaster and not a church. Because he was like, you are not giving me what I asked you to give me. Let me play the clip for you because this is what's going viral, and then we'll talk about it.
I, Roberta McCoy, given faith and stand in unity with the vision of Perfecting Church of sowing this seed of $1,000 plus $235 and receiving the blessings to come to all that participated.
Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do. Touch a neighbor and say, this is the day of giving. I'm trying to do it orderly. So if you're in the line and your total doesn't equal 2,000, you can just slip out while ain't nobody looking right now, and we're gonna call you to come back.
So this lady gets in line and says, here, church, I'm giving you $1,235. And he's like, I'm sorry, it was 2,000 or bust. The hell are you doing, lady? It is not often that a sermon makes its way to TMZ, but this clip did. Like, what right does any preacher have to demand a bounty of $2,000? Like, in this economy? Are you kidding me? I don't think she should have given any money, but seriously, she gave him plenty. I will say, in some articles I read, I saw people saying that clip was taken out of the live stream when they put it online. That is not true. There were actually two different sermons last Sunday, both of which were the day of giving. They did this, give us money and announce how much money you're giving, two different times, and this wasn't one of them. So I don't know what people were talking about. So we'll get to why this is all disturbing. But why did this guy need this much money? What is the church doing with all this cash? Well, apparently, Winans is trying to fundraise to expand his church complex, but it's not like it's an urgent matter. In fact, he's been trying to expand this complex for like 2 decades, and it's been nothing but problems. Check out this article from the Atlanta Black Star, where they said the ambitious plan approved in 2004 called for this giant sanctuary with more than 4,200 seats, a chapel, and a fellowship hall. Construction began, but stalled after the 2008 recession derailed financing. By 2023, the city of Detroit, sued, calling the half-built megachurch a public nuisance. Wow. A settlement later that year set new deadlines. So now they have this revised, larger sanctuary with not as many seats, but also a lot of parking spaces. And it's supposed to be done by spring of 2025. Sure, it is. My guess is, okay, they're going forward with building this expansion. And now the guy's like, I need the money. So everyone else needs to pay up. What was that lawsuit about? The city sued not just because this building was ugly and a public nuisance, but the city said the builders were not complying with the law. I won't get into the weeds there, but whatever. The two sides settled their issues, but the church needs to build the thing now. I am not sure trashing your donors during a sermon live stream is the best way to raise money, but what do I know? Now, this is also interesting because Winans is not just some random guy. The reason anyone was even watching this live stream in the first place is because he's kind of well known in his community. Maybe you've heard of his relatives, Winans. They are famous gospel singers. In fact, Marvin Winans, the guy in the video, he and three of his brothers formed a quartet, and they formed a group called the Winans. It is a gospel group that has won multiple Grammys. So again, this is not some random preacher. This is a guy who has clout, and he's asking everyone for money. I want to show you one other thing here, which is there was another lawsuit involving this guy in 2018, and you got to see this. He was sued by the woman who cleans the church. And check this out. This is from the Free Press, like the good one, not the Barry Weiss one. According to the 18-page lawsuit filed in district court, it was Winans who demanded that the maid, the housekeeper, Harris, donate 10% of her $18,000 a year housekeeper salary to the church. This woman made $18,000 a year, and Winans was like, 10% of that is mine. And Winans allegedly did this during a meeting in a conference room in 2017, telling this woman that it had come to his attention that she earned $18,000 the year before, like he was doing her a favor. So you owe us $1,800, he allegedly told Harris. When she said she didn't have the money, he offered to deduct the $1,800 directly from her biweekly paychecks. I don't think he's allowed to do that. Harris refused, saying she was not going to let the church deduct $1,800 from her paycheck, and complained that the job had already been threatened for not giving birthday money. Apparently, she wasn't chipping in for gifts for the church leadership all the time. This entire church is so friggin' weird. Now, I will also tell you that particular lawsuit was filed in 2018. It was dismissed by the courts a few years later. So make of that what you will. But the fact that this guy seems to have a habit of demanding money from people who really don't have a lot of money. Anyway, do you remember, was it earlier this year, there was another video that went viral? It was of another preacher named Marvin Sapp. And in that video, that guy, who's also a gospel singer, he told his congregation they needed to hand over $20 each. Everyone in the crowd needs to give me $20, and everyone watching the live stream needs to give me $20. And if you all did this, we would have $40,000. But when he said that, he also said, hey, ushers, like, shut the doors. No one's getting out of here until I have my money. That's a thing that happened. Apparently, it happened like a year ago, but it went viral earlier this year. I saw this comment on Reddit that made me laugh when talking about that. If I had a nickel for every church pastor gospel singer named Marvin that displayed the greed they talked about in the Bible towards their congregation and had it immortalized online, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it is weird. It happened twice, which is beautifully said. So anyway, this idea that you can just guilt churchgoers into giving you large sums of money in full view of everyone else. That is a disturbing form of religious manipulation, because apparently it's not enough that you believe in God, and it's not even enough that you give the church money. If you don't give a precise amount that not everyone can afford, this church is not going to treat you with the dignity you deserve. And you have to wonder, would Marvin Winans have been happier if this woman gave him another $800, but she had to go in debt in order to do it? I feel like this pastor would have been fine with that. That's disturbing. Like, there's no reason you should attend a church like this, much less find it worthy of your donations. I want to share with you something else, and this is a brand new update, which is that a local news station finally got in touch with both Winans and the woman in that video. And they're both very defensive of people lashing out at them. So check this out from WXYZ in Detroit. Here's what the woman says. She was interviewed. She talked. She said, "He absolutely did not rebuke me." She is defending her pastor. Now, there's a difference. There was a correction, because let me clearly state that the pastor gave instruction on the lines to get into. And I think what she is saying there is, you guys, she broke the rules, because apparently there were different lines in place. There was one line for the cheapos. She was supposed to go in that line. Then there was the $2,000 line. She accidentally went in that line. So when she didn't give $2,000, she's not following the rules. And I guess there must have been a more than $2,000 line later on for all the people you're supposed to look up to. So she's arguing, listen, I went in the wrong line. I should have been in the cheapo line. My bad. Now, what did the pastor say about all this? Here's his defense. And I don't know what the transcript's all about. It's not a great transcript, but here you go. "I was calling because the whole church was giving, and it was our day of giving, and the whole church was coming, and we didn't want people standing, the mothers and all that. So I was calling them by increments." That's a grammatically weird sentence. But at the very end there, he says he's calling them by the amount of money they're supposed to donate. And we had someone that had given out of before. I guess that means out of line before. And I corrected it. And I told everybody to listen and come when you call. And that's all it was. That's a weird thing to say. I think what he's saying is, listen, I'm trying to keep everything in order. I had the cheapo line. You were supposed to go in that line. I had the $2,000 line. And she made me have to put the money in a different amount in a different purse or something. That's a horrible explanation for why people should not be mad at you. All you have to say is, we appreciate what she gave. And, I was out of line in saying anything. I should have said, thank you. And then no one would have found out about this. Instead, he embarrassed her during the live stream. And that has gone viral to the point that, everyone thinks this guy is a money-grubbing pastor. Not a good look. Not a good look for the church. Not a good look for the pastor. And I feel doubly bad for this woman who not only didn't apparently have enough money to give him, but now has to defend her pastor in the media as if everything is fine. Stop saying she's brainwashed. Stop saying he's being mean to her. He's wonderful. Don't make him mad at me. I want to show you one last thing here. Just speaking about, because all the pastors that I was just mentioned, Marvin Sapp, Marvin Winans in this video, they're both Black pastors with predominantly African-American congregations. And I just want to show you this. This is from the Pew Research Center. You can look right here. In 2007, 85% of Black people said they were Christian. And if you look right over there, it says 59% of them were historically Black Protestant, meaning they went to a church like this one. And I want to show you what has happened in the years since. Here's 2014. That number dipped to 79% are Christian and 53% attend a historically Black Protestant church. And what's happening now? 73% are Christian, 44% belong to a historically Black Protestant church. And there's a lot of reasons that this is happening, but what the trends are showing is that the percentage of African Americans who call themselves Christian has gone down. The number of African Americans who go to a historically Black Protestant church has gone down. And I'm not saying it's happening just because guys like Marvin Winans are trying to steal all their money. There's a lot of reasons it's happening, but I feel like whenever we see a lot of Black preachers in the news for things like this stuff now does go viral. It does cast a really bad light on churches that, by and large, compared to white evangelical churches that are promoting conservative politics, Black churches are generally they're generally liberal. They're generally pushing like a message of social justice. Even if you disagree with the Christian message, they're spreading a good message overall. And it's kind of sad to see that guys like this get in the news. Why? Because they're trying to take people's money. There was no justification for that. I don't care how much money he needed. If he doesn't have the money to expand his church, then too bad. You don't get to expand your church. That's how it works. Collect the money, then start building. Don't go the other way around. Anyway, that was embarrassing and horrible. I think when faith leaders weaponize guilt and they turn these sacred spaces into a place for financial coercion, they're not preaching anything about the gospel anymore. They're just performing a con openly. In that sense, it's very much like Donald Trump, like the most corrupt president ever. But it's hard to get the guy because he's so open about all the shit he's doing. He does it right out in the open, and it's like you can't do that. It would be a big deal if he was trying to keep it secret, but he just does it so brazenly and openly that it seems like no one can get him on anything. And I feel that's the same for this pastor. Like, you're totally conning your own congregation, but because you're doing it during a live stream, what are they going to do about it? Never give any religious leader more money than you can freely give. And if it's one thing for the pastor to ask you to give money. Hell, I'm a content creator online. I do that too. But if he's saying, no, you have to give this amount or else I'm going to publicly shame you, that is disturbing. Like, you want a day of giving? Wait until members of the church give themselves permission to walk out the damn door. All right. I will stop there. What questions do we have about this messed up story? Thanks for becoming a YouTube member, Mark. I appreciate that. People can't pay their rent, can barely afford groceries. Food banks are starting to run out of inventory. And this snake has the audacity to berate somebody about how much they are capable of giving. Yes, you have summarized the story perfectly. In Detroit, of all places. Like, come on, man. Go to a rich suburb and pull this shit. Don't do it in Detroit. What leverage does he have on her? I mean, that's the thing. What leverage does he have on the entire church? Why are all these people feel like they're so indebted to the guy? Then again, since we've talked about politics, I don't know why every Republican feels like they can't criticize Donald Trump unless they're already retiring and halfway out the door. Like, what does he have on you people that makes like half the country unable to just admit the sky is blue? $1,200 is the cheap line. I know, right? Like, how much was the cheapo line? I have no idea. But apparently this lady should have not been in the $2,000 line. She should have been in the next tier. I'm sure if I watched the full live stream, I would know how much the cheapo tier is, but don't make me watch a 3-hour church service. Even if it was her mistake, he handled it horribly. Yes, absolutely. Calling her out publicly and then going to the media after it went viral and saying, guys, don't be mad at me. She was in the wrong line. It was her fault. It doesn't make anything better.